With us today, we have Ann Eubanks, who is the new president for Dana Point Boaters Association. Hi, Ann.
Hello.
And we have Donna Kales with us, who is the co-president over at Dana Wharf Sport Fishing and Whale Watching. We have Captain Dave
Hello.
Anderson with Captain Dave's Dolphin and Whale Watching Safari. And joining us in just a minute will be Captain Corey Hall with Dana Wharf Sport Fishing and Whale Watching. He was with us and we lost him a moment ago. So he will be back. And I am Giselle Anderson with Captain Dave's Dolphin and Whale Watching Safari. And we're just really excited for those of you who are joining us and who want to learn more about how to watch whales safely and to also successfully. So Ann, you've got something to share. Would you do that?
Yes. Welcome, boaters, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. Whether you're new to recreational boating or an old salt, there's much to learn in tonight's presentation. Your Dana Point Boaters Association is excited to co-sponsor this highly informative webinar, along with Dana Wharf Sport Fishing and Whale Watching, and Captain Dave's Dolphin and Whale Watching Safari. Now, for a change of pace and to learn more about how the professionals spot marine life, get a group of friends together and take an excursion on one of their boats. I know firsthand it's a lot of fun. And to stay up to date on Dana Point Harbor Boating, please visit the Dana Point Boaters Association website at danapointboaters.org. If you aren't signed up for our monthly Boater Blast, think about doing so today. It's a wonderful way to stay informed. Back to you, Giselle.
Awesome. Thank you, Ann.
Yeah.
For those of you who may not know this, in 2019, Donna Kales and I formed something called Dana Point Whale Watching Company together. The two different whale watching companies came together to put Dana Point first and to let the people who may not know that Dana Point was really a unique and special place to see dolphins and whales. We thought more special than pretty much anywhere else in the world. So we had Dana Point trademarked as the dolphin and whale watching capital of the world in 2019. And Donna had it in her heart to want to have Dana Point set aside and or awarded and recognized as a Whale Heritage Site. So Donna, why don't you tell us about that?
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm so happy to be here. Hi, all you Dana Point boaters. Thank you so much. So the Whale Heritage Site is something that was formed by the Cetacean, the World Cetacean Organization, and it's the World Cetacean Alliance, and they started having whale heritage sites. And approximately about 6 years ago, I learned about them and I thought, wow, Dana Point would be the ideal place for a whale heritage site in the US. And they only had 2 at that time. And so when Giselle and I formed and trademarked the Dolphin and Whale Watching Capital of the World, that was the next thing that I really wanted to see Dana Point become. And it's tremendous to be a whale heritage site. It's a lot of responsibility, and it designates Dana Point as an outstanding location where we see cetaceans, whales, and dolphins, and we don't really have to tell all of you Dana Point boaters how wonderful Dana Point is. But Giselle and I, it was our goal to tell the world what we've always known for a really long time, and this being the 50th anniversary of the Festival of Whales, 50 years, longest running festival in the world. We're just very, very excited. And so we thought that it would be a perfect time to inform all the boaters and kind of go over safe and successful whale watching. So thank you so much. And thank you, Ann, and the Dana Point Boaters Association.
Awesome. So we are excited. For those of you who are local, you already know we have over 450,000 common dolphin off the coast of Southern California and Baja. We have 5 species of dolphin that we see throughout the year. We have 5 species of whales that we see throughout the year. Dana Point is arguably the most beautiful and, as Richard Henry Dana says, the most romantic spot on the coast. And of course, we are the first place in the world to have a whale festival, thanks to Don Hansen, who started the Whale Festival. And this is the
50 years ago.
50 years ago. And so we're really excited because we're the first place in the world to have one. And we have had one thanks to his efforts, and then Donna in the last couple of decades, every single year. So no one's ever going to take that title from us. That's one of the other things that makes Dana Point super special. And then of course, the fact that we're so close to these very deep coastal canyons. We don't have to go miles and miles. I was just talking to someone who goes out of San Diego a couple of days ago, and she said, I have to go almost an hour before I get to the drop off out of San Diego, but Dana Point, my gosh, a mile and I'm out there. And that's why we're able to see these megapods of dolphin just right outside the jetty. I mean, it's like a stone's throw to where these animals live and breathe. So before we get started, well, actually, Corey, I wanted to first introduce you again while you're here now. And this is Captain Corey Hall, and he is captain with Dana Wharf Sport Fishing and Whale Watching. And Corey is going to tell us about how to locate these animals and to successfully find them when you're out on the water by yourself. What do you do, Corey, when you're a boater and you're out there and maybe you've got your friends and family on board, or maybe you're just out there by yourself? How do you find these animals?
All right, guys. Hey, good evening. Well, a little bit about what I do myself and what we try to do as a group is when we leave the harbor, more than likely we've already talked to a few other boaters. We kind of have an idea of what's going on given the day's conditions. We have a fleet of 17 boats, many of them fishing. So they're out early. Typically, we're getting intel from them. Once we leave the harbor, we're going to check with our other whale watching boats that are out there, along with the other companies that are out there from Dana Point. We're checking with Newport, also Oceanside. So pretty much 35 plus miles are well covered over the phone or the radio before we even leave the harbor. Once we leave the harbor, we're going to be talking to our folks, kind of telling them what to expect, what to look for. And that is basically, depending on the day, obviously with the conditions that are handed to us. But obviously, if it's a nice, calm, flat day, we're going to be able to see further. We're going to be able to see more animals just because the disturbances on the water that they create. That's probably the number one thing. We're also looking for any type of birds, any type of bait, any type of anything that we can see other than another boat. We don't need to look for boats. We're out there looking for the animals. And like Giselle was saying, with the drop off so close to the beach, that area often is a great place to start. I know myself as an operator, if I do by chance leave the harbor with nothing to go for, I drive straight off the beach to the drop off because of the upwellings there. It pushes the nutrients up to the surface, which attracts the small fin bait, which 90% of these animals that we're out there looking for are going to eat. And along with the fin bait comes the cetaceans, whether it be whales or dolphins or anything like that. So that's a great place to start. Also, looking for other boats. If you're a private boater, looking for other boats out there is a great way to start too. And either hail them on channel 11. That's typically the working channel for all these people. And even a lot of the private boaters have adapted well to calling us on 11, and we'll reach out to them, especially if you're the first person out and nothing to report. A lot of times we'll get on the radio and say, hey, is anyone off the coast, Dana Point, looking for whales or dolphins? Have they seen anything? And then obviously the different times of the year right now, gray whale kind of right of it. And the gray whale themselves being coastal migrators, it's easy for them to be seen from close to the harbor. Where in the summertime, when we're looking for more pelagic type whales being maybe a humpback, fin whale, blue whale, minke whale, are a little bit further offshore, and it gets a little bit more tricky that way. But so that's kind of the advice I have, the direction I would take.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. So you mentioned the gray whales along the coast. Can you talk a little more about, because we're in the thick of it right now, right? So tell us a little bit about the gray whales, and where do you generally see them, and why are they where they are?
Well, the gray whales are deemed kind of a coastal migrator. Obviously, the closest distance between 2 points being a straight line is not in their vocabulary. For some of the older animals, the more adult animals, they are going to take the outside route, which is much more of a straight line. But any of the typically pregnant females or the females that have given birth, recently it's been figured out that there are a lot of births in California. And once that happens, those animals will take the inside route, much shallower than maybe even 60 feet of water. And that they are using different landmarks, Dana Point being one of the most predominant landmarks on their migration. And with that being said, we see just a tremendous amount more animals here than they do, say, in Oceanside or Newport Beach. There's a lot of whales that come off the east end of Catalina Island, and they come straight to Dana Point, and then they make a right hand and continue down the coast. It's pretty much a straight line from here down to the bays and lagoons in Mexico.
Gotcha. And then, so right now, today, are we seeing more going south, or are we seeing them going north? And when does that change?
It's pretty much changing right before our eyes. The majority of the whales, I'd say, are going northbound. I think we had 7 northbound whales today, 7 different northbound whales today that we reported in, and that doesn't include what you guys saw over at Captain Dave's or any of the other private boats out of there. That's just what our boats were on. We try to plan the Dana Point Festival whales kind of right in the middle of it, so we have the best chance, the most increased chance of seeing these animals. There is a little bit of a lull sometimes, and we never know. It's kind of predicted by the winter that they have up in the Bering and Chukchi Seas. If it's an early winter, we'll have that lull earlier in the season. I think this year was a little bit later. We had a little bit later of a migration, so who knows? But it's been pretty good. We've been seeing a pretty good flow of both north and south. But like I said, today we had 7 northbound gray whales. Awesome.
So if it's gray whale season and I'm heading out, you said I checked with the other boats and all of that, I don't see anything on the horizon. I'm not seeing that puff, of smoke, if you will, that kind of dissipates. I don't see that. But what else might I, if I don't see any gray whales, what else at this time of year might I hope to find? If you're heading out and you think, okay, it's not going to be a gray whale day, what else can I go look for at this time of year?
Well, we have
common dolphin.
A tremendous amount of dolphin that live here. There's also coastal bottlenose as well as offshore bottlenose, and white-sided dolphin typically are seen in the wintertime much more than the summertime here. And we've had the showing of the humpbacks and the fin whales in a little bit deeper water, which sometimes takes us away from the gray whales, especially when there's other boats out there and we have a big spread of the fleet looking around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if I'm heading out there and I'm, I've got a couple hours, right? And I'm by myself and I'm on my boat, and let's say I have a power boat, so I can maybe cover some good distance. What would you say would be a great depth for me to head for, and in what direction if I'm heading out from the harbor?
For right now, I would leave the harbor and I would probably go to the Red Whistle Buoy right off Dana Point, and I would kind of hang out there for a little bit, just because that underwater topography tends to attract animals. I've seen many whales there that have hung out there for hours and hours, And that's my go-to. If I don't have anything to run for and it's gray whale season, I'll start there and I'll show the folks the sea lions. We'll do a nice in-depth sea lion talk. And then if I haven't come up with anything then, this time of year, I'm going to start heading south, and I'm going to start heading south right outside the kelp line would be my guess. Like 10 fathoms, 9 fathoms, 60 feet, something like that or less.
Okay.
And hopefully get lucky.
Okay. Now I've got a friend with me and they're like a dolphin nut, right? They're like, oh, that's nice, but I really want to see dolphins. So now what do I do? What do I look for out on the water when I'm scanning the horizon?
Birds. Look for birds. I find more dolphins from the birds because they're attracted to the fin bait, as is the common dolphins. And common dolphin being probably the most popular animal that we have around here. The birds are a dead giveaway. If it's nice, flat, and calm, obviously that's a different story. You're going to look for what would look to be like wind waves and whatnot. If it's windy and it's a little bit choppy, gets a little bit trickier to find the dolphin. You got to really, really be in tune. You're going to be looking for the whitecaps basically going the wrong direction. That's usually a dead giveaway. But mainly get out into that 100 fathom area, which is roughly a mile and a half off the beach. If you see the big, large orange buoys, those are the shrimp gear. We like to say that they're right kind of on the drop off, anywhere from 70 to 100 fathoms, maybe 110 fathoms. So if you don't have a fathometer, a depth finder on your boat, you could definitely utilize the shrimp gear and drive up and down that shrimp gear. And that line is not a straight line. As you drive south and you get closer to below the pier, you're going to start heading offshore to stay in that 100 fathoms.
Got it.
It's a lot shallower if you stayed in a straight line.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. Thank you. If I get out there, I've seen a gray whale. I already found a pod of dolphin. I've got a little more time. Where would you recommend I go after that?
That's a good question. If you've already seen the sea lions, a lot of times we like to take our people down to Seal Rock off St. Clemente, right below St. Clemente Pier. Especially like on a northbound migration, we might stretch it out to San Onofre, and on the way home, stop into Seal Rock. As long as there's not a huge swell. There's oftentimes harbor seals on the lower rocks. There's plenty of sea lions there. Or once you get above the pier, or even below the pier inside of Seal Rock, there's no structure or anything in there. There's a lot of times we'll find coastal bottlenose in there, which are super cool, and they'll come right up to the boat and play around.
Just let our people know who may not have a chart out, because people don't pay attention to their paper charts anymore, maybe to watch for those reefs right north of the pier and between the pier and Doheny. Yeah. I've come sadly a little closer than I want to those reefs when I was by myself. Okay, so I've gotten out there a couple of times. I've been out there. I've had 3 or 4 hours on my hands, and I've been feeling kind of spunky and adventurous. And I really want to see one of those behind me. And it's summertime, and I heard that there's some out there. Is there a better place to go looking for them than someplace else? Where would you go if you had 4 or 5 hours and you wanted to see a blue whale?
Offshore, those animals, we have seen them I've seen them as shallow as 20 fathoms, but they kind of got off track and they quickly headed deeper. Outside of 100 fathoms, outside of that shrimp gear, the drop off that we speak of, and really birds come into play with those animals too. Those large animals are feeding typically on krill. Every once in a while they'll eat the small fin bait anchovies, but primarily krill, and that's an excellent source of food for all the pelagic birds out there also. And it's not uncommon to see them 2 to 50 miles offshore. So if you have extra time, offshore is definitely a great option. It definitely is a big area to cover, and I don't like to go in a straight line. I like to kind of zig and zag, so I'm covering plenty of area. And just look for boats out there and look for boats on the horizon, seeing what they might be doing. If you see a boat motoring and then they kind of stop and they maybe circle around, that's usually a good indication that they may have found something. And the blow from a blue whale can be seen easily over a mile naked eye without any binoculars at all.
Wow.
Being 20 to 30 feet tall. So if they're around, there's a good chance you're going to find them if you're out there.
Right. When you're out there and you're not seeing something, how often, if at all, do you actually stop and scan the horizon? And do you use your binoculars, or do you do it with just your eyes?
So when I'm out there going, I don't like to go any more than 10 knots. That's kind of my thing. Obviously, if we get a call from someone and we're heading a direction, we might kick it up a notch. But 10 knots, and yeah, we're glassing the whole time, whether it be one or two crew members. We are in the glasses the whole entire time until we find something, and then even then, when we're interacting with the animals that we found, I still have a guy in the glasses looking around for the next thing.
Gotcha. So you mentioned something about 10 knots, and I wanted to address the optimal speed. I mean, obviously you want to try and cover as much ground, but I also know that sometimes you're zipping along and you're thinking, and the tendency is, oh, I have a faster boat so I can cover more ground, so I'm zipping faster. But then we had an experience a few months ago where we were doing just that, thinking I was being very successful at covering this great big area, and then we stopped. Kind of suddenly, we were heading towards a direction. We stopped to pick up a balloon, and as we were doing that, we turned around, and up popped behind us about a quarter mile a humpback. We had gone right by him, right, because we were going so fast that we went right by him. So what do you think is really the optimal speed to be out there cruising at?
It just depends. If you're out there looking for whales, and it's kind of I don't know that there's an optimal speed, because you're out there looking for whales and they spend most of their time beneath the water than on top of the water. So
Right.
With that being said, it's a challenge. You might have a boat that does 15, 20, 30 knots, and it can get you, say you want to go to one of the outer banks, like the 14-mile bank, or, the 279 or something like that, where you've heard of some activity. And that's fine, but you're probably going to miss a lot of stuff on your way there. That's where I find going slower. 10 knots, you're still covering in an hour, you're still covering almost 10 miles. That's a pretty good, our trips are 2, your trips are 2.5. So that's a pretty good leash, 8 to 10 miles, I would say, on a given trip.
Right. Just out of curiosity, in a 2-hour trip, how far have you seen a pod of dolphins like the ones on the screen travel?
Oh, I've chased them to 10, 15 miles offshore.
Wow. Yeah. So they can really move. They can really haul.
They can really move. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Corey. This was really helpful. I'm going to be thinking about you the next time I head out. I think everybody who watches this is going to be thinking about you as we head out. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. We'll come back and see if we have any questions at the end.
Yeah.
So I'm going to see if Captain Dave wants to come back on here. And there we go. And Dave, before you get started, I'm going to play a little video here that we have from Alyssa Schulman-Janiger, who is with the ACS LA chapter. Alyssa is well known for running the gray whale census, and she reports on what they see throughout the months of December through April. And you can see this beautiful area behind her. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can play this. There we go.
I don't hear any sound.
Here we go.
I can see, but I can't hear anything. I don't know if anybody else can.
I cannot hear her.
Okay. So I guess the audio is not working correctly, and it's catching. So I'm going to go ahead and pause that and take it to the next screen. And Dave, you're going to be able to share anyway what we see. And I'm going to start off with this great picture because when we talk about watching whales successfully, and safely, what we're talking about is keeping in mind the health and well-being of the animals as well. We want to have an experience with them. We want to see them, maybe have a connection with them. That's one of my favorite things to do, is see these animals eye to eye. But they don't always want to engage, and particularly these gray whales who are kind of on a mission. Like I like to refer to them as tourists on their way to their vacation. And when I'm on my way to mine, I don't want to stop anywhere. I just want to get there. And that's a lot like the gray whales sometimes when they're heading down to Baja, where they're going to mate and have their calves, and then on the way home. Now they can be very playful. They can be very interactive. It's really up to the animal. And so this is a great picture of what a gray whale, referred to as an alligator style of gray whale, looks like. So he's just snorkeling along and you will barely see him. And so that's why Dave is going to talk to us about whale safety, because the last thing we want to do is injure or harass in any way, intentionally, unintentionally, these animals. So Dave, why don't you tell us how we can safely watch these animals?
Sure, Giselle. Thank you, Corey. I appreciate your input, and it's very enjoyable. And Giselle has done a really great job of moderating here. You should be a professional. Doing a great job. So basically, if you're, let's say you're out, you guys are mostly going to be, taking out your own boats and going out to maybe do something else, and you might spot a whale, or maybe you're going out and looking for a whale or a dolphin. And so then what do you do when you find one? And Corey's given you some good advice on locating whales and dolphins. So now you've found one, what do you do? Well, let me tell you one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to run him over, obviously. And what happens a lot of times when people are excited and they see a whale is they want to get as close as they can to have a good look. And that's completely understandable. However, what we don't want to do is we don't want to run it over, and we don't want to get in front of it either. So your safest spot to be is, first of all, when you first spot the whale, you want to kind of try and figure out what you're looking at. What kind of whale is this? Because if you don't know what kind of whale you're looking at, then you're going to have a hard time knowing where to go. So before you even go anywhere, maybe if you just spotted it, you might want to just sit there for a minute and see what's going to happen next. Because if you don't know, if no other boat's following that whale and you're there all by yourself, and if you're not, we're professionals, we kind of know usually what we're looking at as soon as we see it. But if you've come upon a whale and you're really not sure what you're looking at, then you might want to just sit tight for a minute and just see where it's going to come up next. So let's assume it's a gray whale. Well, gray whales are generally going to be traveling in a straight line for the most part. I mean, they can zigzag a little, but generally they're going to be either moving up or down the coast. So if you know what, like if you're like us and you've been watching them every day, then you kind of know which direction they're going. Like right now, like Corey said, most of the whales that he saw today were or that Dana Wharf saw today were heading up the coast. So it's a pretty safe bet if you spot a whale close to shore this time of year. It's probably going to be a gray whale, could be a humpback too. So if you know for sure it's a gray whale because you saw it and you saw the barnacles and you kind of recognized it, then you can probably sit there for a second, make sure it doesn't come up again. And if you're just not sure which direction it was going, you can just sit there long enough for it to come up again. But if you're pretty sure it's going to be heading up the coast, because most of the whales we're seeing are, then you can slowly move up the coast. But here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to get straight behind where that whale was. You want to stay to the side of it, either to the right or left side of it. It doesn't really matter as much, except for it might matter as far as your the sun. So if you want to get into a position where you can see good and where the sun won't be getting in your eyes. So pick whatever side you're going to be on for that whale, and then make sure you stay to one side or the other. And the other thing is the gray whales, they generally travel at about 4 knots, 3 to 4 knots. So you don't want to be going faster than the whale, because he's going to stay down for maybe 4 minutes or so on average. And so you don't want to be going faster than he is. So if you're traveling, let's say 5 knots, well, then you could end up where you're in front of him now, and you might even get in his way. And obviously that's not something you want to do. So if you can basically maybe go 3 knots or 2 knots, 2 knots is probably the safest, because even if it's a mom and calf, it's generally not going to go much slower than that. So, if you do maybe 2 knots, and then you keep to one side, and just kind of move very slow and keep looking behind you, because he might even just be stopped or be going the other way. And then after the whale comes up again, then you'll have a pretty good idea of his speed and his direction. If you find that he's way up ahead of you, then you know, okay, well, I can go a little bit faster. If he's right even with you, then you know your speed's good, but you might want to go a little slower if he's even with you. So now you slow down a little bit, because you want to always be staying back behind him, and you want to, just in case he changes direction, you don't want to have him end up getting in front of you, and then now you're right there and he comes up right in front of you. That's something we don't want to have happen. Now, it can happen, even no matter how much you try to stay out of their way. Sometimes they don't, they don't have any rules, and they can just come on over and say hi. And so, that's always awesome when it happens, but you don't want to really be moving when that happens. So if the whale does come over by you, then you want to be sure you shut your engine down. Just put it in neutral, don't shut it off. And that's another thing. Don't ever turn your engine off when you're around a whale, because a lot of people don't realize this, but they don't have echolocation like dolphins do. They have a primitive form of it, but they could actually run into you and not realize you're there. So you want them to know right where you are. So if you leave your engine running, then they'll know where you are. We actually had a friend of ours was down in San Diego, and he got they were out there with the whales and watching them, and they shut the engine down, and the whale didn't realize it was there, and a blue whale was feeding and came up right under the boat and knocked him into the water, flipped the boat over, and practically destroyed the boat. So it can happen. It's not likely, but just keep your engine on. And I can tell you a little story too. I was out with sperm whales once, and they were quite a ways away from me. And I was filming them, and so they were so far away, I wasn't worried about them, running into me or anything. And so I was filming them, and I wanted to hear their blows, which I could just barely hear from a distance. So we shut the engine down, And I was just sitting there, and then all of a sudden, another boat came towards them, and they decided to leave, and they headed straight for us. And I just kept filming them, thinking, oh, well, they'll turn. And I could see them; they were right on the surface, and they were like almost like a torpedo. And they got right next to the boat and literally went right under us. And I had a GoPro and stuck it in the water and could see them and everything. But that was a little scary because I broke my own rule and I had my engine off, and I was kind of worried that maybe they didn't realize I was there. But fortunately, sperm whales actually they can echolocate. They're a toothed whale, so I wasn't as worried about them. But anyway, that was a fun day. So now again, it depends on the whale. Now imagine that instead of a gray whale, you're watching a blue whale, the largest animal on Earth, bigger than the dinosaurs or Elvis or Michael Jackson. So you got one of those guys, and now what do? Well, that whale, he might be feeding right there in that spot. He might be moving up or down the coast. So you really don't have any idea what direction that whale is going to be moving. So your best bet, if you spot one of those big blue whales, is just to sit there and see what happens after he goes down and see where he comes up. Because you're not going to know until he comes back up. And they can stay down for, 10, 12 minutes. So they're going to be down for anywhere from about 7 to about 12 minutes. So I just sit there and wait till he comes back up. Now, on the screen here, is that showing right now, Giselle? That marine mammal
Yes,
protection?
that's what's showing. Yep.
Oh, okay, so let me go over that with you guys real quick, because the important thing here is in 1972, the Marine Mammal Protection Act came into effect. It was designed to protect animals, and all marine mammals are actually protected. Dolphins, whales, sea lions are all protected. And we're not allowed to do anything to disturb them, basically. And harassment can be a lot of things. I mean, literally, if you go over to sea lions and whistle and say, hey, look at me, sea lion, I mean, technically, you could be harassing them. So if somebody wants to get you in trouble, you could get in trouble. So, I don't want to stress this too much, because most of the time when we're out in the water, people are respectful of the animals, and they don't they don't do anything deliberately that's going to be what I would call harassment. But sometimes people do actually, they try to get too close to the animals. We even try to warn them and let them know not to, but they instead of kind of staying back, they're really just leapfrogging up and trying to get a good look, and they can really get close to the animals. And we've even seen people who have actually struck whales because they were, with their boats, because they just weren't being respectful. And sometimes it's just plain ignorance. They don't know where the whale is. They don't even understand what's happening. And sometimes it's they don't care. We'll try to explain to them what's going on, and they'll pull their pants down and they think it's just a joke, and that or they'll give you the finger or whatever. They'll, because they don't have any respect for the animals or the people that care about them. And we do care about them, and we can turn people in if they do something like that. And there is a big fine for it. So you really do want to be aware. And the main thing that we don't want to do, now there's a lot of rules about whale watching. So let me go over that with you. There's a lot of confusion. A lot of people will say, well, you're supposed to stay 100 yards back. Okay, well, that might be the guidelines to stay back that far. But the question is, what is actually harassing the whale. And basically what it is according to the law, is if you do something that causes them to change their normal behavior, then you have basically violated the law. So the reason that the guidelines say to stay back 100 yards is because if you're back that far, it's almost impossible for you to disturb them. Now, are you going to get closer than that? I'm not going to advise you to get closer than that, but I'm just going to tell you that you really want to be thinking about where that whale is, and if you don't know where he is, then you should just stay back. Because if you don't know where he is, then you could easily get into trouble really quick. Now, if you know where he is, if you can see him, and you know right where he is, and you don't have to hit the gas really hard to get a little closer than that. I'm not going to say to do it, but I'm going to say that you're not harassing them if you are not disturbing them. If he's not moving away from you, if he's not bothered by you, then you're not disturbing him. But if there's more than one boat there, if you're out there by yourself, that's one thing. But if there's, let's say, most of the time that you go whale watching, there's going to be multiple boats there. And you should, if you spot a whale, enjoy it for a little while, but then let us know. Let us know that there's a whale out there. Call Corey up on the radio, or call one of our guys, and let us know, because we appreciate that. What happens a lot of times when boaters are out is they'll kind of follow us around. And I'll tell you a little story I had happen one time. I had a guy follow me. I mean, he followed me everywhere I went. If I turned right, he turned right. If I turned left, he turned left. And I was like, oh, this guy is like a barnacle on my boat. He's just following me everywhere I go. And I'm just like, oh, man. And so finally, I'm thinking to myself, look, if he wants to find a whale, I understand following the whale watching boats, but hey, why don't you spread out a little bit and we can all go look together, and even call me on the radio. Hey, Dave, you guys looking for whales? Hey, what can I do to help? That would be great. If you're one of those guys that you want to follow the whale watching boats, well, then call us up and say, hey, I'm out looking for whales. You guys need a hand? Hey, you want me to spread out? You want me to go out a little further? That'd be great, But he just kind of stayed right there with me. And so we got got to the dolphins, a big pot of dolphins, and he's out there following them around. And so I pulled up next to him and I said, hey, how you doing? And he said, good. And I said, listen, I need to get your credit card from you. Since you're doing a dolphin safari today, I think you ought to pay for it. And that guy goes, hey, Dave, I'm your next door neighbor. Remember me? This is so-and-so. And I felt so bad because I opened my big mouth and said something to this guy, and he actually was my next door neighbor who was out on his boat. So I learned my lesson never to assume anything or say anything. But anyway, so the thing is that most of the time that you're going to see a whale out there, you're probably going to be looking at a whale that we're looking at, that one of our boats is looking at, either a Dana Wharf boat or one of ours, Captain Dave's Dolphin Whale Safari, one of our boats. And, so we're all going to be out there together. And so if you do see a whale, or if you do see whale watching boats, here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to say, oh, look, there's whale watching boats. I'm going to pull right up to the front and get a good look. No, please don't do that. Here's the etiquette that we really would like you to do. Now, it's a free ocean. We don't own those whales, but you don't either. Nobody does. We're all basically there, because God's blessed us with these beautiful animals and we're getting to see them. And so we want to share them with each other, and we don't want to get in the way of whale watching boats that are watching them, other boats. So if you're the last boat there, then really think of it like, okay, I'm the last boat here, so I really should be in the worst position if possible. Like I'll try and kind of position myself to where I'm not getting in anybody else's way and everybody has a good view. And now the whale watching boats, they're all kind of different. We're all out there trying to have a good look, and we try to be the same way with each other, but sometimes every situation is different. For example, sometimes you've had a 2.5-hour trip and you've only got 5 minutes left to see a whale, and you've got a boat full of passengers that really want to see a whale. So sometimes we'll kind of slide into the best position. Usually we try to let the other whale watching boats know, but sometimes we'll slide into a really good position, and then we're there for 5 minutes and we leave. But when you're out just doing a normal whale watching trip with your friends on a boat, or just out, and you come upon a whale watching flotilla, so to speak, where there might be 2 or 3 boats watching the whale, then you want to kind of go to one side or the other and try and stay back behind the whatever boat is the furthest back. I would just do that at least initially when you first get there. Find the boat that's the furthest back and over to the side, and just get in that position and stay over there. And if you're not sure what's happening, feel free to call us on 11 and say, hey, how's it going, guys? I just pulled up, what are you looking at here, or whatever. And listen, sometimes the whale captains can be a little unfriendly towards boaters, but typically it's only because we tend to get used more than we get helped by boaters. There are boaters out there who really help us, and I mean, those guys, we get along with them so good, and we love them, and we give them all the information they want. And then there's other people who just, they come out, they follow us around, they never say a word, and they get in the way, they get in front of our boats, and so if you want to be one of the boaters that everybody likes and works with when you're out on the water, then just call us when you see a whale or dolphins. Let us know, and when you're out there, say hi and be friendly and be respectful. You can even ask, hey, am I in your way over here, or whatever, and the respect will be given back, believe me. But anyway, just try and when you approach a group that's following a whale, just try not to be the guy that says, oh, I want to get up there and get the best look, because that's what really annoys everybody. And you'll see people following a whale for a long way, and then all of a sudden somebody comes in and they decide they want to be the front boat, and they go up too far and they get in front of the whale, and then they scare the whale, they spook them. And now they're right in front of him, and the whale doesn't keep going straight anymore. Now the whale turns and he changes direction. And they've violated the Marine Mammal Protection Act at that point, and they could be given a fine. And there's usually plenty of people filming this. But nobody wants anybody to get a fine, but we do want to all be able to keep watching that whale. So if you can, just really try and stay back, and that's about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. So the slide that is up right now is about, it says to report incidents of harassment, you can call NOAA, law enforcement. But what I wanted to address is If someone's out there, if I'm out there and I see an animal and then I realize, wow, this animal's acting really weird, and then maybe it reaches or it shows its flukes or it shows its pectoral flip or fin, and I see that it's got something on it. It has got some kind of an entanglement or gear wrapped around it. You've worked with both companies have had teams work on these animals. You started Orange County's first large whale disentanglement team. What do we do if we see an animal in distress and it looks like they've got something on it?
Well, oftentimes it's hard to tell that an animal has gear on it. We've even been looking at whales for a while and then didn't realize it had gear on it. But if you do see an animal that's acting funny, I would definitely start off right then at that point with letting us know, letting the local whale watching companies know that you've got a whale that's behaving unusually. And then without getting too close to it, try to observe and see if you can see anything, any gear. If you do notice it and are certain that there is an entanglement on the animal, then do two things. Give the number that's right up there, the 1877 SOS whale call them, but don't just do that. Also call us over at Captain Dave's, or you can call the wharf too. But if you call me, I promise you, if you call us, I will track down somebody that can do something about it. I can give you my personal word, and I think the same thing will happen if you call over Dana Wharf. They'll make sure somebody gets it. What happens sometimes with the SOS whale calls is I've had people call in and sometimes no like saying I don't care. So I'm just here. I just don't. Zell takes a deep breath, freaks out. I don't care. That's why they don't like me sometimes because I speak.
I'm gonna mute you, Dave.
What's that?
I said I'm gonna mute you.
She has the mute power.
That's a mutiny, you know. You can't do that. Mutiny, no muting. So anyway, but they sometimes when people call in there, it doesn't get to us very quickly. So do two things. Call if you see an entangled whale, call the SOS whale, but don't just do that. And this goes for, I would say, for anybody that sees one. I would always let somebody else know. I always let the wharf know if we have an entangled whale. Hopefully they'll let me know too, because we need to all be talking to each other out there, because whale watching community is what's really gonna be watching that whale until somebody gets out there to help it. Biggest problem we have when a whale is entangled is that it doesn't get anybody on it fast enough. And by the time somebody gets out there to help it, it's hours later and nobody is watching that whale for hours. Then the whale just disappears and we never see it again. So the best thing to do is to have as many people out on the water as possible know that that whale's there and be able to trade out. Maybe Dana Wharf's boats go out there for a while and they're watching it, and then we go out for a while and watch it. We trade out. It's heartbreaking when these animals are spotted, and then by the time a team can get out there and help them, they're gone. We don't know where they are. So.
Right. I was going to say also, you know, if you're a private boater or anybody out there and you see a whale and you think it's in distress, try to take video or photos of what the situation is.
Yes.
So you can share that. That's a big tool used in assessment. Try to get a handle on which direction the animal is going in, what speed it's going at, you know, what kind of behaviors it's demonstrating. And then I wanted to give a shout out to the private boaters, because one of the successful disentanglements that we had was because a team of private boaters literally babysat, whale sat a whale throughout the night. And that was Peter Bartholomew, Team Bartholomew,
Yeah.
that whole group, these three gentlemen, they stayed on their boat. Dave put a flashing light,
Good story.
a marker, put a flashing marker on this whale just before dark. But we knew that if we let that whale go off into the night, we wouldn't know where it was the next day. So Peter and his team volunteered, and they spent the night following a flashing light through the dark so that the next morning at daybreak, the team knew where they were. So it takes a village, it takes a community of people, and it's not just, the two whale watching companies or people who are on the teams, it's everyone. So, okay, well, gosh, we wanted to keep this to an hour. I think this has been really helpful. We really appreciate those people who've been joining us, and thank you. We've got some questions here on the chat, but I think we've answered everything that has come up. So thank you, Anne, for co-sponsoring this and for inviting the boaters and the yacht clubs to join us. And thank you, Captain Corey Hall, for teaching us how to find these animals. We'll be thinking about you when you're out there. And Dave, thank you for showing us how to keep whales and dolphins safer. And
Phil,
yeah.
one thing I just want to stress is that while pictures and everything are good and calling us is good, the ideal situation, the very, very best thing you can do is to stay with that animal. Because if you're the only one that's out there and you leave it, there's a very good chance we'll never see it again. Mm-hmm. So if you do see an entangled whale, then it's really, really important that if you can't stay, that you try and find another boat that can stay with that whale until somebody can get out there. If people just keep handing it off to other people, there's a much better chance that whale will get helped. So and you can even let the Harbor Patrol know. They've even come out and helped. And so there's everybody wants to help. I mean, really and truly, you can call almost any boater when you're out there on Channel 16, hail them and say, hey, there's a whale over here. Can you guys, I have to go, I got to get home, but can you stay? Mm-hmm. Anything like that is really, really helpful. So, and our whale watching, Dana Wharf and Captain Dave's, we work real well together out on the water and helping these animals, but we really do need the help of the boating community when this stuff happens, and they have helped. They've helped many times, not just that time with Peter, but there's been many, many times that they've been really helpful. And you guys are great out there. We really appreciate generally the attitude and the way most private boaters are. They're very respectful and they do a great job. So I hope I didn't sound too harsh on how I was acting, how I was saying about them, because most of them are really nice. We just have a few that kind of ruin that reputation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dave. Well, again, thank you, everyone. And Donna, thank you. This wouldn't be happening right now if we weren't doing this together, and it wouldn't be happening if lots of other people hadn't been part of this journey. So we appreciate all of you for joining us. And
thank you so much.
A 50th anniversary.
Yes, and happy whale watching, everyone.
Happy whale watching, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Anne.
Bye.
Thank you, Dana Point Boaters. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Corey. Bye-bye.
Enjoy
Bye-bye.
Festival of the Whales this weekend.
Yes, thank you.
We certainly will. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.